Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and get started, and maybe some more people will hop on a little bit later. If you have any questions while we're going through the webinar, everybody's going to be on mute, but there's a questions button down here. If you can see my screen, you can type in your questions so that we can go over those at the end, and hopefully we'll have some time at the end to open it up. I'll unmute everybody and we can go through any questions that you have. If there's any issues hearing me or seeing my screen, just write something in the question box there so that we can look at what's going on. So our topic this afternoon is decoding the different ways of manufacturing in Dynamics AX2012 R3. So there are a number of different cool features that make up the manufacturing functionality in AX. It's really well known for really being a great ERP system for all things manufacturing. So I think we have some really good content this afternoon. So this is just our agenda for what we're going to be covering over the next hour. So we'll do a quick introduction. I'll introduce myself and kind of what are the main topics we'll be looking at. And then we're going to actually dive into each section of manufacturing in AX. So that's going to be discrete, process, lean, and project. So those are, when we think of manufacturing in Dynamics, those are really the four main areas that we typically see companies using functionality. And then at the end we can open it up for some Q&A. So my name is Jeremy Schmid. I'm a Dynamics AX consultant here at eBECS. I'm located in Atlanta, Georgia. I've been working with Dynamics AX for 3 years, and I've mainly been focused in the trade and logistics and production side. So I've done a number of implementations focused in those specific modules. So, and I've worked in all areas of manufacturing. So we at eBECS are heavily lean focused. We actually wrote the code that eventually we sold to Microsoft. That is now the current lean manufacturing module that exists in AX2012. But beyond that, we focus a lot on process, discrete, and project manufacturing. So manufacturing is really our bread and butter. Okay, so just a little more about eBECS. So we are a total Microsoft business solution. So what does that mean? So we're all things Microsoft. That's the only thing we focus on. We don't work with any other softwares, we don't do anything with SAP, Oracle. It's all Microsoft based. And specifically within that Microsoft suite of products, we are focused on the ERP side. So the ERP products that we work with are Dynamics AX and Navision. We also work with CRM and then business intelligence. So we work with the standard Microsoft Power BI package, and we've also developed some of our own products around BI. Additionally, we're currently working with Azure, helping with the Azure deployments as part of AX7, as well as any managed services you may have. And then additionally, just to round out the remaining kind of Microsoft solutions, we work with getting everything mobile for you and field service solutions, and then obviously Office 365 for your organization. So all things Microsoft. Okay, so manufacturing in AX2012, like I said, it's really developed a strong reputation as one of the leading ERP systems for manufacturing. So when they think about manufacturing, Dynamics AX is normally on the top of their list. Reasons for that: it supports a large range of industries, and reason why is because, like we're going to see later on or throughout our presentation here, it covers discrete, process, lean, and project. So there aren't many businesses that do heavy manufacturing that don't fit into one of those areas of functionality. Additionally, it also supports mixed mode. So a lot of times what we'll see is companies won't necessarily do one. You aren't necessarily just discrete manufacturing, or you're not just a lean manufacturing company. You may have pieces of both. So you can mix and match to actually do what makes the most sense for your business. So the first one we're going to dive into is discrete manufacturing. So just a little overview about what discrete manufacturing is. So when we think of discrete manufacturing, it's a finished product that is a distinct item. So it's something that you can easily see, you can easily count it. You know when you make it, you know how many you have. Another way of looking at it is it's something that can be recycled at the end of its life cycle. So its components can be broken down into all their individual pieces. So some of the types of products we would see is in a discrete world would be the automobile industry is a good one. So you know when you make a car, that's obviously that's a single finished item. You can count it, you can see it, you know all the components that go into it. So if you ever disassembled a car, you would be able to say, okay, these are the wheels, this is the doors. All the components are easily recycled, and you would know what they were. Other types of industry would be in the furnitures, toys, and smartphones. So these are all things that we would think of as discrete businesses. So specifically in AX, what's discrete manufacturing? When we come to actually use discrete in Dynamics AX, we use production orders. So production orders are what we actually use to produce either our semi-finished or finished goods. In order to produce those items, we have to have a bill of material. So we talked about all the components that go into a finished good, all those parts that go into a car, like the wheels, the windows, the electronics. Those are all things that we will design as part of our bill of material so that we know the material we need to consume in order to make our product. Another feature of using discrete manufacturing is the product configurator. The product configurator is a really cool and powerful tool in that if we go back to the car example, the product configurator allows the customer to configure their product. So they can go through and they can say, I'm going to select a blue car with maybe with a sunroof, with a certain type of engine, and they can actually go through and select all those parts, and it creates a unique bill of material and route for us. And lastly, what kind of ties all this together is we have our route and resource. The route is the steps that we take to produce something, and the resources are the machines or the people that we use to complete those steps. So that's really kind of our labor and costing area for production or for discrete manufacturing. So those are kind of the four pieces we're going to just focus on. So the first thing that we need in order to create a production order is a bill of material. So this screenshot is an overview of what a bill of material looks like. So we can see down on the bottom section of this pane here we have a number of different components that go into making my product. So I list my components. I can define what the quantity is that I consume as part of this bill of material. And so what happens is when I actually go to create a production order, if it's an active and approved bill of material, then this is the production order that gets pulled in for me to produce. So you can only have one active bill of material at a time per site. So you can be working on other ones as maybe you're doing some engineering change and you're adding new parts, but you can actually only have one active per site. And therefore, if you're using master planning or something, it knows which bill of material to pull in. So we talked about the product configurator. This is just a kind of a small screenshot of what a product configurator could look like for configuring a car audio system. So we can see this is what potentially a customer could see here, in that we can define different selections here. So I can for my front speakers I can say, okay, I'm going to pick this type of speaker. I can for my rear speakers I can pick this. Then I can also define maybe what type of car type I have. Is it a sedan? Is it a coupe? That type of thing. And again, this is product configurator is really only really used for discrete manufacturing. So it's if you were in a configuration environment, then you would really need to utilize a lot of the discrete functionality. And finally, we have routes and resources. So this is an example of a route. We can see that in this particular example, I'm producing steel, and I have one operation. So I could have multiple steps or multiple operations as part of my route, and those are basically the instructions that my shop floor workers will use. They'll see, okay, my first step here, operation 10, is some type of assembly or process that I'll do to maybe melt steel, and then I may have additional steps that I'll take in order to get to my finished product. In this one we just have one step, but it just outlines the steps you have to take to complete production. Similar to the bill of material, we have an active and approved feature with the route, so you can only have one active route per site. So, but that still allows you to work on other routes as you go, but you can only have one active one. Okay, so now we're going to get into process manufacturing, and get into kind of where the differences are between process and discrete. So we think of process industries. Process industries are normally the production of goods that are in bulk quantities. So discrete was a single item like a car. You can see that, you can count a car, you know what it's made of, you know all the components in it. Process is not really like that. Process is a bulk of material that isn't as easily counted, and normally this type of product requires high levels of batch traceability. So typical industries that will be processed would be food, oil and gas, paint, material engineering, or pharmaceutical. So one of the good examples is paint. Normally when you produce paint, you may produce it in one big bucket, and out of that you'll get a number of different packed paint cans. And basically, you don't always know exactly how much paint you have or what all is made up of it, and you're producing it in a bulk quantity. One of our recent customers were a foundry, and they basically melted down a bunch of different metals, and the outcome or the end product was a powder that they sold to aerospace type companies. But basically, they brought in a bunch of different materials, they melted it down into one big mixture. So you don't know exactly what the exact percentage of everything is in that mixture, but you're left with a big bulk quantity that you can eventually sell and distribute to your customers. And then food is a good one, because typically process has batch traceability, and with food, if you produce any type of food products, you're going to have it batch controlled, so that you know where it was made, when it was made, that type of thing. So process manufacturing AX2012, what are kind of the key features of that? So for process, we use a formula. So we don't use a bill of material like in discrete. We use a formula and batch orders. So batch orders instead of production orders. The main difference is that they look very similar, but the main difference is that when we think of a formula, we think of it as an ingredients list. So, and a cool thing about formulas that can be percentage controlled. So you can come up with a percentage of each component that goes in, or each of your ingredients, in order to build your formula. And this makes it automatically scalable. So no matter if you increase or decrease quantity, it's scaled by that percentage. Another unique feature is the co-product and byproduct. So these are things that you attach to a formula. The co-product is, if you produce something, a co-product is a valuable output of that production process. Okay, so it's something you may produce your main product, but out of that you may get something else that you can actually sell or put back in inventory. And then we also have byproducts. So that would be something like scrap. So you may produce your product, your finished good product, and you may have something you need to dispose of, and you want to pick up that cost of that disposal. We have rework orders. So this is something that you cannot do with discrete manufacturing. You get bomb circularity issues, but you cannot consume the same product when you produce something. So with process, you're allowed to actually use rework orders. So you can consume yourself to rework whatever product you have. And then batch attributes, which we'll talk about. So this is a screenshot of the formula. As you can see, it looks fairly similar to what we looked at on the bill of material earlier. We can have multiple versions. We can only have one active one per site. And then at the bottom pane, we list all of our ingredients. So for this particular formula, it's a formula for producing steel. And the two main ingredients that I have as part of my formula are carbon and iron. And I can see here that this is percentage controlled. So I can say 10% carbon, 90% iron is my percentage. So no matter what I produce, the system automatically is going to calculate that I'm producing 10%, or it's going to expect that I'm going to consume 10% carbon and 90% iron. The last thing to point out here is that we have our direct link to our co-products. So we can see, if we click into this, we can see exactly what co-products we get out of production here. To dive in more on co-products, this is actually what we open up if we were to select that co-product button. And this shows me the co-products that I have coming out of my steel production. So I can see I get benzene, which is one of the key pieces of the gasoline you end up using for your cars. So when I make steel, which is my main finished product, I also get my co-product of benzene, which I'm probably going to sell for good money. So I can indicate what my expected quantity of benzene that I'm going to get is. So I can say for every pound of steel I make, I'm going to get 50% or 0.5 pounds of benzene back as part of production. So it's not my finished product, but it is my co-product out of that, and I want to make sure that I include that. And the system allows you to automatically pull that in. And finally, when we go to actually produce the product using our batch order, we can see that we have an option here for a rework batch. So this is something you will not get if you use a standard production order through Discrete Manufacturing. And this basically just allows you to produce the same product consuming that thing you just made. So it's a true rework example. So if I make steel with a certain batch number, I need to rework it for whatever reason, I can just consume that same material and I won't get an error. But you have to activate that button there in order to use that. Batch attributes. So these, if we go back to the fact that process manufacturing is very often batch attribute controlled or batch controlled, there's functionality that allows us to record batch attributes against our products. And this is often done maybe to record some quality results, or maybe some customers only accept certain products that have certain compositions. So for this, we can see that as part of my steel, I'm made up of carbon and iron, and I'm able to indicate what actually the end result was of my composition. So here I've said my attribute was carbon, and I've recorded a certain value. I've said I was 10% carbon, and I'm able to indicate that my minimum is 5% and my maximum is 15%. And the reason I do this is maybe if something falls outside the maximum percentage, I may have a customer that will not accept that particular product. So it allows me to filter inventory by these batch attributes. And you can really use these for anything that's important for your particular product. So if you're in the food industry and you want to record where your product comes from, what farm your particular product comes from, you can indicate by the regions. You can say it comes from the Midwest, it comes from the West Coast, and so you just keep track of those particular attributes against those products. Okay, so we're going to hop into AX real quick and do a short demonstration on process manufacturing. So let me close out here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go and produce steel. So that formula that we looked at, I'm going to go through an example of what it actually takes to produce steel in AX. And to do that, I'm going to start from a master planning perspective. So we can assume that maybe I have a forecast, or maybe we'll say we have a forecast in the system, and it tells us that, and I've run master scheduling, and it's outputted that I need to make steel. So it's saying I need to make 10 pounds. Now, I typically probably make more than that, but for this example, I'm going to make 10 pounds of steel. If I look at my planned production orders, and as the planner, I can review this. I can see what my order date is, so when I should start it, and when it's due. So when do I need this to actually fulfill my forecast or my customer demand? As the planner, once I've reviewed this and I've checked my capacity and I've checked my schedule, I'm going to go ahead and firm this order. Now, master planning is used for both discrete. Well, it's actually used for all types of. You can use master planning for all all the different areas of manufacturing in AX. But when I firm it, it's going to drop off my planned production order screen, and it's actually going to release it as a real production order for my shop floor team to start to execute against. So if I go into the production control module, I'll go into the all production orders, and I'm going to filter to steel. And when I filter to steel, I'm going to look at the very top one is going to be the one I just created. So I can see it's for a quantity of 10. It's pulled in my delivery date, so my shop floor team knows that I need to have this finished on the 8th of June. And it's in a scheduled status. So what that tells me is that me as the planner, the step we just did, we firmed it up, we reviewed our capacity and our schedule, and so now we're actually ready to transact against this particular order. Now one thing I can do is, from a production standpoint, is I can actually look at my production details and I can look at my formula. So for this particular, for this product or this steel I'm making here, I can see what the expected ingredients are for this particular production. So I can see I'm made up of carbon and iron, and I can see that I'm 10% and 90%. If I want to add any components to this, I can at this point. So it's copied over what the active formula was, but I can always edit it here. So I'm going to leave that as is. And if I go back into production details, I can also look at my expected co-products. So I can see that once I complete production, I'm expected to receive in this benzene on top of that finished goods steel that I'm going to have. And so this is what I can see of what I'm expecting in from a co-product standpoint. So I've released this order and we're ready to go. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start this production order or this batch order. It's going to say I'm starting 10 pounds of steel. I'm going to say OK, and it's going to update my status to started. Now what I'm going to do as a worker is I'm going to go into my pick list, and I'm actually going to indicate what batches I'm consuming of carbon and iron. Because we're in a process world, it's very likely that these materials will be batch controlled. So I need to indicate actually what batches I'm using for this production run. So in carbon, I'm going to say I'm going to consume batch 2. For my iron, I'm going to consume batch 11. Okay. Once I've selected that, I can go and post this journal, and it's going to go and backflush my material and take it out of the inventory. Tells me it's been posted. Once I've posted my material and I've actually completed my steps, maybe I've melted down my carbon and steel, and I have my finished product steel is complete, I can go back and I can actually report as finished my production run. So what I see when I go to my report as finished is it automatically pulls in 2 lines. So the first line is for steel, my finished good, for quantity of 10. But then I have a second line here that now has pulled in my co-product that was tied to my formula, which is my benzene, which has been pulled in. What I can see is that if I make 10 pounds of steel, I have 5 pounds of benzene that is the co-product from that production. Additionally, I've automatically generated my batch numbers to stay within my batch control. And then I've also utilized a feature called batch disposition codes. And these are basically allow you to either make a batch available or in this case unavailable after I complete production. So if my batch is unavailable, I may not be able to sell it, I may not be able to pick it or move it around my inventory. And it's basically a way for you to do some inspection once you've completed production. And it's a pretty cool feature, batch disposition codes. So I'm going to go ahead and say OK, and it's going to report as finished. It's actually going to update my inventory with my finished steel, and it tells me that I've posted my journals successfully. And the last thing I'm going to do is if I go to my report as finished, I'm going to go to my batch that I produced for steel. So I'm going to go to my batch number here. And I'm going to go, if I go to my batch attributes, so if I go to my batch attributes, maybe I recorded the actual composition of what came into what made up my steel. I'm going to load on my attributes, and it tells me, it pulls in my carbon and iron. So I can actually say maybe for this one I was 8 and this one was 92. So that ended up being the amount that was made up of this run. And so now I can record this and I can filter my inventory by these batch attributes. Now where we've also seen this used is you can link these attributes directly to quality orders and have these populated immediately. So if you record a lot of things on a quality order from an inspection standpoint, then you can have them automatically loaded to your batch attributes. Okay, so that completes our demonstration for process. So I'm going to hop back over to my PowerPoint. So the next piece of manufacturing we're going to look at is project manufacturing. So project manufacturing allows companies to manage their resources and tasks within a single project. So this is great for engineer-to-order companies where every product is a new project on its own. And so it allows you to visualize that project and report off that project, and it really makes life easier for from a project manager's perspective. As part of that, we can group costs and all of our expenses together, so we can use time and expense management in AX around projects. So the type of companies we typically see using project management are engineering companies, like we said, so any make-to-order or engineer-to-order companies where maybe you only make one product every 6 months and you want that all tied into one project. Trade shows and also the automobile industry will see projects, particularly around maybe if a company's releasing a new prototype, so they're only making maybe 1 or 2 of those, and it makes sense to tie those into a project. So what is projects in AX2012? Well, it allows us to really maximize our project management. So we're able to see all of our tasks, and it really combines everything that goes into our project from a production, a procurement standpoint to the costing side. It pulls everything in, so it's a very nice way to manage a particular project. How this is all kind of combined together is through the work breakdown structure. So we'll take a look at a screenshot of the work breakdown structure, and that is basically just a way to see all of the tasks and all of the dates that are assigned to that particular project. So task 1 I need to have finished by this date, task 2 this date, and you can indicate different milestones that you may have in your project. As part of this, integration is key. So one of the cool features of projects is that everything is integrated. So you set up a project that for your project management, and you can tie in your cost, you can tie in all areas of your supply chain as well as your actual production. So it's all integrated in there into a very user-friendly experience. And then finally, project accounting, and this really relates to the time and expense management you can use as part of projects. So your users can record, they can manage any expenses they have, they can indicate what they can clock in and out to manage their time on a given base. You're also able to assign different resources to a project, so each resource or person may have a different labor rate, and that can all be recorded against the project. And then this all hits the general ledger and works with all the standard financials in AX. So project management, what do you really get from managing a project in AX? Well, from a project manager role, you're able to manage all your resources and tasks. So all of your different people that are part of a project, you may have certain resources or people that have certain skills that need to work on certain tasks. Where you're able to identify all that in a project. And then it makes life easier from a budgeting standpoint. You're able to see what the total cost of your project is, how your budget's increasing as you move through your project, and make sure that you're actually on target for your end result. The screenshot on the right is an example of a project manager role center, and what we get from this is we get a lot of key performance indicators around the project, so we can see just different numbers around how you're performing from a budgeting standpoint or from a resource standpoint, And it just makes, because we all have all that data tied in, we're able to output something like this that's a very visual and user-friendly example of kind of how you can manage the day in the life of a project manager. So the work breakdown structure, this is kind of the cornerstone of what makes up a project in AX. And basically, this is a list of all the different tasks that go into a particular project. So this screenshot is an example of a bug fixing project. So this is probably for a software company. They're fixing a number of issues maybe they have in a certain, maybe one of their software hot fixes or deployments they had. And these are all the tasks that go into those projects. So you can go through, you can see they do different debugging, different analysis, whatever it is. And on the right side, we're able to, or if you kind of scroll through this work breakdown structure to the right, we can see the hours each task is taking, so each expected task, so and then the total hours for this entire project. We can see how many resources we have assigned to each step, so what people we've assigned, and then we can see it schedules it for us, so we can see what the actual time frame is for completing this project. Now, a cool feature here is we're actually able to open this in Microsoft Projects or create this in Microsoft Projects and load it in. So it works well back and forth with Microsoft Projects. And the other thing highlighted here is we're able to export different templates we used for other projects. So integration to the supply chain. So we integrate, like we said before, to all areas of your business. So master resource planning, all the MRP engine in AX works with projects, any forecasts or sales orders, procurement, every piece of your supply chain you can easily access from a project. The last thing on here is how you can utilize production and production scheduling using projects. So projects is a very cool kind of Gantt style chart that allows you to kind of drag and drop and schedule your actual task inside a project, which automatically will update your production orders. So it's a very easy, user-friendly way to schedule and manage your production side of a project. And then finally, project accounting. We touch on most of these, but easily manage project budgets so you can monitor the progress. Automatically generate financial reports by project type. So you may have different projects, and we can report off that and get the data we need. Time and expense management. So for your workers inside a project, your resources, you can record. They can load their expenses in easily and record their time. And then it's immediate integration to the general ledger in AX. Okay, so the last piece of manufacturing we're going to look at is lean manufacturing. So some lean industries and what really makes up a lean organization. It's really if you're for a lean company, it's a systematic change within an organization. So it's a little more than some of the other ones we've looked at from an organization standpoint. If you're a lean company, it's really something that you've driven across your organization. It's not even necessarily purely related to it's not related to an ERP system or to software. It's more of just it's an internal initiative to become lean and eliminate waste within your organization. So if you fall into this category, typically you'll be very interested in continuous improvement. So that is things, it's a mentality of always trying to improve processes and eliminate any waste in existing processes. From a manufacturing standpoint, just-in-time manufacturing is really a key here. So that is basically you're getting the parts and you're producing the parts when you need it, where you need it. So you're not keeping inventory of a bunch of parts. You're not keeping dollars tied up in inventory. You're efficient enough to basically you only order material when you need it and you only produce it to a customer. And from the customer, it goes to the idea of pull from your customer. You're not pushing material. So The customer is the driver here. So if a customer places a sales order, you pull the material to him. You don't have it sitting on a shelf waiting to just ship it to him, but it's a direct pull from the customer. That kind of ties into, you end up having frequent inventory turns because you're not keeping a lot of inventory. So there can be a lot of lean industries, and it really depends more on the organization because it's an organization methodology. But one of the ones you're probably familiar with is Toyota. They're kind of one of the first ones to really set from a manufacturing standpoint, a great example of how you can use lean principles within a manufacturing organization. So what is lean in AX2012? It's all about pool. So we have the functionality in AX to manage a pool scenario, pulling from the customer. We have different functionality there to handle that. Build to order, so we can tie in Kanbans and lean production straight to the sales order. So customer places an order. The result is that we automatically build something directly to that order. So we don't have things sitting around, but it's a true build-to-order scenario. Lean is very visual in AX, so we have a number of really cool boards that allow both production and planning to have a better visual experience and make their life easier in AX. And then mixed mode. So this goes back to what we talked about in the beginning. But mixed mode is really, you can utilize other areas of production that we looked at with lean. So we can be lean in certain areas, and maybe we use standard discrete in other areas. So lean manufacturing is pool. There are a number of different Kanban types that allow us to manage that pool. So the Kanban is the electronic signal in AX. It's equivalent to a production order. So if we produce a Kanban, that means we're producing a finished good or a semi-finished good. And there are just a number of Kanbans that allow us to pull material in to supply customer. Now we can use those Kanbans for production. So if we're producing something, we can use them for transferring material. So we may move material throughout a warehouse, from a raw material warehouse to a finished good. And we can also use it for subcontracting. So build to order. So we're able to build it when we need it, where we need it. And this allows us to manage a wide range of products with keeping low inventory. And you need to have an efficient supply chain to be able to utilize that. But if you do, there are something called event Kanbans in AX. And event Kanbans can be triggered directly from a sales order. And we're going to show this in a quick demonstration once we finish this slide section. In that you can create a sales order line, and immediately when you save that sales order line, if that product's set up as an event Kanban, it will plan the entire supply chain for you. It will move material in your warehouse, or it will create triggers to move material in your warehouse, and it will create a Kanban automatically for you so that your production team can get it produced for that customer. So we talked about visualization. So this is really one of the best features of Lean in AX2012. What we're looking at here is the Kanban schedule board. The Kanban schedule board. And this is what a planner would use. So from a master planning standpoint, this is the planning board. So each bucket here, if we look through this planning board, each bucket is a day bucket, and it has your capacity. So it says if we look at Friday here, this first one, we can see that my total capacity is 100 pieces. So I can make 100 pieces of this particular product in that bucket, so for that day. And the colors indicate different products. So I can see if I'm making one product or if I'm making another product, I'm able to manage those and look through this schedule board. Now one of the best features of this is it's a drag and drop. So I could drag one of those products, and I could easily drop it into another bucket, and it automatically will reschedule for me, for my production guys. So it makes life a lot easier from a planning and scheduling standpoint using that drag and drop. The next screen we'll look at is the process board. So this is your production board. So your production guys can use this board to produce. They can see all the different jobs or Kanbans they have to produce. What's really, again, it really pulls on visualization. What we can see from our board, if we imagine this just sitting in the shop floor for our production team to use, is this board automatically can pull up the production instructions for a particular job. So if we look on the bottom here, we can see that I see different instructions to assemble this particular product. So I don't have to go clicking into multiple screens. I can see what I need to make, how much I need to make it, when it's due, and I can see even how I need to make it. So it's a really useful screen. And again, I can complete and start and complete my job right here. So from a production standpoint, you don't need to leave this one screen. And then finally, mixed mode. So we can pull from all different areas. When we think of lean, we can pull from all different areas of our supply chain and production to basically build the right solution. So I can use master planning. I can use production orders for certain areas. I can mix and match. I can use Kanbans. I can use a forecast. I can drive things straight from a sales order. It's not one solution doesn't fit every company. And so we're really able to configure that around the functionality we have to build the best solution. And this is just an overview of all the functionality we have sitting in AX around lean. So there's a number of things that we didn't touch on, but it's a really robust solution that has a lot of functionality. The last thing to consider are some building blocks when you actually go to set up lean. So what actually makes up lean? What are the kind of the key setup components in AX? Well, they're the Kanban. So those are the electronic signals that we have that we'll see on our production board, and they'll tell us, Kanban will indicate when you need to make something. Kanban will indicate you need to move material, and then production flow. So production flow is kind of the backbone of all the setup. Kanban sit within a production flow. And the flows indicate an end-to-end process. So they'll indicate from a sales standpoint to all the way to shipping to the customer. So you may have certain products that fit into one production flow, but it basically indicates, and the reason it's important is because all your costing in lean is tied up to that one flow. So lean costing is a little unique from other costing in AX or other production costing. But everything's kind of tied into that production flow, and it simply put, the production flow mirrors an end-to-end process for your business, so or for a particular product line. So those are some of the things you would need to focus on setting up if you actually went to start using lean. Okay, so we'll do a quick lean demonstration here. So if I hop back into AX. So what I'm going to demonstrate is a true make-to-order scenario. So this is how we would replicate a build-to-order for a customer. So we're going to drive the entire process directly from the sales order. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put on my customer service hat, and I'm going to go to the sales order, and I'm going to put in a product. So my product is this assembly make-to-order product, and I'm going to create, for this I'll do a quantity of 5, and I can see where I need it from a customer service standpoint. I can see I need it at warehouse 12, or to produce it or ship it from warehouse 12, and I'm going to save this line. So all I'm going to do is save the line, and when I save the line, it's automatically going to plan. It's automatically going to plan for the material I need to move and the material I need to make in order to produce this item. And I have this visibility from the customer service standpoint. I can go to product and supply. I can look at view pegging tree. And I can see right away that it's already planned out my entire flow in order to supply this customer. It's created a Kanban for me and planned it. If you look at the job status, and which was the assembly step. And it told me when I needed to produce it. So this has already gone off to my production team. From the minute I enter this in on my sales order and save it, my production team gets that instant visibility. So there's no downtime from when a customer places an order to when my production team sees it. Additionally, I have some components I need to move over. So this component here, eBECS, is something I need to consume as part of my production. So I get that trigger also here in order to move the material where I need it. So if we hop back to, we're going to go to the transfer board. The transfer board is the board for material handler. So what he'll see here is I've got my quantity of 5. I need to move my component over. If we look over here, I'm moving it from warehouse 11 to warehouse 12. So as a material handler, again, this board is similar to the production board. This would be sitting in the shop floor. You can see here what components he needed to move. So if I look at this, I can see that my supply status for this is okay. So I must have 5 sitting in my raw material warehouse ready to transfer. And I can go ahead and, once I complete the transfer, I can go ahead and complete this. And again, this was triggered directly from the sales order being entered. Okay. If I go to transfer this is a batch controlled component. So I need to indicate the batch number I'm moving. So this works with all types of traceability you may have. And once I registered, it completes my transfer. And if I refresh, it will go to a completed status. Okay, so this goes to completed. So as a material handler, I've completed my transfer for this particular customer order of my components. Now I'm going to go to my process board. So if I see here, I haven't refreshed my screen yet, I don't have a quantity of 5 sitting there. If I refresh, I'm going to see it automatically pulls in my Kanban for 5 for my finished product that I'm actually going to ship to the customer. So again, all I had to do here was I just entered a sales order line and I saved it, and it's triggered all of my production processes for this order. I can see that I pulled in my production instructions. So as a worker on the shop floor, I can immediately see what I need to do in order to assemble this particular product. It's all right there on one screen for me. I don't have to go clicking around on multiple screens to get that information. Once I've completed this job, I can go to manufacture and I can go to complete. And when I complete this, I'm going to have updated inventory and I will have completed production. Okay, so this goes to a completed status here. And so from a production standpoint, I'm through. And the last thing I want to check is if I go back to my sales order, from a customer service standpoint, I can get an alert that this has been completed. So I can see here, if I click back into my pegging tree, I can see my Kanban, and I can see that my job status is set to complete. So I know that this order is ready to ship. So it's a lot of transparency, and it's immediate feedback between production and customer service for this build to order scenario for a particular product. So it's a really streamlined process that allows you to kind of cut down on any wasteful tasks or clicks within the sales and production side. Okay, so that completes the demonstration. A few more slides, and we can open it up for Q&A. So some upcoming events. So if you enjoyed this webinar, we have a lot of other great content that we do. We're doing a lot of webinars, not just manufacturing based. You can just take a look through here, some of the other ones we have. You can find all of these and all of the dates at our website. So we have a webinar coming up around demand forecasting. We've been doing a number of these in AX7 now, or we can see most of these coming up are in the new Dynamics AX7. So you can go through a day in the life from order to ship and get a feel for what the new Dynamics AX looks like, how it feels. The screen layout's a little different. There's some new cool functionality there. Again, we can there's a webinar coming up on retail, another one focused on production operations, and then a more specific one on the projects module. So we just kind of touched on a high level, but there is more around the projects module. And finally, we're also offering a master class. So basically, a master class is something we're providing that's going to take you through an end-to-end training of AX7. So if you're interested in that, please feel free to reach out, email me, and we can get you signed up for that. And it's going to be a great training tool for anybody that's interested in learning about AX7 or interested in upgrading. So additionally, we talked about any next steps that you may have. So the master class is one you can read about on our website. We also offer some other services. Specifically, the one I want to point out is the proof of concept around the upgrade. So if you're currently on an older version of AX and you're considering upgrading to AX7, we offer a proof of concept where we come in, we do a short analysis of your business, and we can outline what it would look, what your company would look like on Dynamics AX7, and also identify maybe different things that you would need to consider around moving code or data. And this is our upgrade assessment, which is again related to updating or upgrading from an older version of AX to the Dynamics AX7. So you can read a little bit of information on what that all entails here. Okay, so that completes the presentation. Thank you everybody for joining the webinar. I hope it was helpful. I hope you learned some things. I know it was a high-level overview of kind of what all the different areas of manufacturing are in AX. If you have any follow-up questions, feel free to email me. I'm happy to answer any additional questions, or visit us on our website there at eBECS.com. So that we'll open it up for any questions that we may have. I'll unmute everybody, and then and we'll go through the. Everybody should be unmuted. So I have a question here. I'm trying to see this. So from Renee, can you continue with standard cost but use lean manufacturing as our production mode? So yes is the answer. If you're using lean manufacturing, you have to use standard cost. So it's actually a requirement of lean manufacturing. You're not allowed. It only works with standard cost. So if your business is using standard cost, but you're thinking about using some lean functionality, that's no problem. Any other?
I have one more about the standard cost.
Okay.
So we use standard cost for all of our products, but we run a lot of trials through that are manual production orders that we create, and we run those as actual costs.
Right.
And we schedule them with our lean orders. Is there any problem with some items being actual?
No. It's not a problem if you're producing them using production orders, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's not a problem. No. As long as the only place you'd come into issue is if you were, if you're trying to produce products that, using lean, using different costing method. But if you're producing them through, standard production orders, you should be fine with that.
Do you have one of these seminars that's mainly lean oriented? You showed us something, but I would like to see a lot deeper than what we saw.
Yeah, definitely. I have to check I'd have to check the events. I know we did one recently. I don't know if it was for. We do a number of these webinars, but we do a lean one very frequently because that's kind of how we got started actually with our particular business here, was all around lean. So. I think I'll have your email for this, so I can reach out to you and give you a specific date of when we would be doing our next kind of lean focused one.
That'd be great.
No problem. Okay. Well, it's 1 o'clock. Thanks for joining again. If any questions, feel free to reach out. Okay. Thank you.